One quiet morning, as the sun barely peeked over the horizon, a solitary fisherman named Tomas prepared his modest boat for the day's journey. He lived on the edge of a small coastal village, where life had always been simple, and the sea was both his livelihood and his companion. He was known among the villagers for his reliability, his quiet nature, and his respect for the ocean. He often ventured far beyond the familiar shores, casting his nets and patiently awaiting the day's catch. This morning felt different, though, as if the sea was calling him to something extraordinary. As Tomas sailed out into the open waters, the calm of the ocean enveloped him. The air was cool, and the waves gently rocked his boat. His routine was familiar, but today he felt a strange pull, something he couldn't explain. His boat drifted farther out than usual, deeper into the vast expanse of the sea. He shrugged it off as the wind pushing him off course, but as the hours passed, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the verge of something monumental. By midday, Tomas found himself in unfamiliar waters, far from the usual fishing grounds. As he dropped his nets into the sea, something unusual caught his eye beneath the surface. The water was clearer than he'd ever seen, and through the depths, a gleam of gold shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Tomas' heart raced, his curiosity piqued. He had heard the legends of hidden treasures beneath the waves, of pirates and sunken ships, but he'd never imagined that he would be the one to discover such a thing. His hands trembled as he hauled the net back into the boat. But this time, instead of fish, there was something far more valuable. At first, Tomas thought it was a mere reflection of the sun on a rock, but as the net came up fully, it became clear that the object was something far more precious. Gold, old and weathered, gleamed from the folds of his net. A small chest, encrusted with barnacles and seaweed, had been caught in the mesh. The chest was intricately designed, with markings that seemed to pulse with energy. Tomas stared at it, unable to believe his eyes. For a moment, the world around him seemed to fade, as if the sea itself had opened up to reveal a secret that had been hidden for centuries. With cautious hands, Tomas opened the chest. Inside, nestled among the layers of ancient cloth and faded parchment, were gold coins, each one stamped with strange symbols he couldn't recognize. But what truly took his breath away was a small, smooth stone at the bottom of the chest. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen, a gemstone that glowed with an inner light, its colors shifting like the ocean itself. Tomas instinctively reached out to touch it, and as his fingers brushed against its surface, a jolt of energy surged through his body. The sensation was overwhelming. Tomas gasped, his vision blurring, as the boat seemed to rock violently beneath him. The air around him crackled with electricity, and for a brief moment, he thought he might be struck by lightning. But the storm never came. Instead, he felt an incredible rush of strength flooding his body. His senses sharpened, and his muscles grew tense with newfound power. Tomas felt as though the ocean itself had entered him, filling him with an energy that was both exhilarating and terrifying. His heart raced as he struggled to understand what was happening. He tried to stand, but the energy inside him was so overwhelming that he nearly lost his balance. His hands gripped the sides of the boat, and he noticed that the wood beneath his fingers seemed to bend slightly, as though it were responding to his newfound strength. The sea around him seemed to shimmer, the waves growing more intense, as if the very ocean was alive, reacting to the stone's power. Tomas took a deep breath and steadied himself. He was no longer the same man who had set out on his fishing expedition that morning. The power coursing through his veins was undeniable, and he could feel that something had changed within him. He looked at the gemstone again, its colors now swirling like a storm. As he gazed into it, he began to hear voices, faint whispers that seemed to come from the depths of the sea itself. "Take the power, Tomas," the voices murmured, their tone both ancient and familiar. "It is your destiny." Tomas shook his head, trying to dismiss the voices, but they persisted, growing louder and more insistent. "The power is yours. Embrace it." Despite the fear that gripped him, Tomas knew that he had no choice but to accept this new reality. He had discovered something far greater than a simple treasure. This stone, This artifact had granted him something that no man had ever experienced before. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and let the energy wash over him. The next few days were a blur for Tomas. As he returned to his village, he kept the treasure hidden in his cabin, unsure of what to do with it. But the changes in him were undeniable. He felt stronger, faster, more aware of everything around him. His senses had heightened to an extraordinary level. He could hear conversations from miles away, feel the slightest movements in the air, and see the most minute details with perfect clarity. His strength had increased tenfold, and he found that even the heaviest tasks he once struggled with were now effortlessly within his grasp. The villagers began to notice the changes in Tomas. His fishing trips became more fruitful, and he was able to bring in far more than anyone else. He seemed to be able to predict the tides, sensing where the fish would be even before they appeared. Word of his newfound abilities spread quickly, and soon, people from other villages came to seek his help. They marveled at his strength and his uncanny ability to navigate the seas, and many began to believe that he had become something more than human. But with these new powers came a heavy burden. Tomas found that the more he used the strength the stone had given him, the more difficult it became to control. His emotions were heightened, and he began to struggle with feelings of isolation and fear. The power that had once felt like a gift now seemed like a curse. He could no longer trust his own mind, as it became consumed with the whispers of the sea, urging him to embrace the stone's power fully. One night, as Tomas stood on the shore, staring out at the vast ocean, he heard a voice in his mind, louder than ever before. "You are destined for greatness, Tomas," it said. "The power of the sea is yours to command. But you must make a choice." Tomas clenched his fists, the power surging within him as he faced the decision that lay before him. He could continue to use the stone's power, becoming more and more consumed by it, or he could cast it away, returning to the simple life he had once known. But deep down, Tomas knew that he could never return to the life he had before. The sea had chosen him, and now he was bound to it in ways he could not fully understand. The following day, Tomas set out once more, this time venturing far beyond the shores of his village. He sailed to the deepest parts of the ocean, where the water was dark and mysterious. There, in the depths, he hoped to find answers. As he dove beneath the waves, the power within him surged, and he could feel the ocean's pull like never before. The stone's energy seemed to guide him, pulling him deeper and deeper into the darkness. In the deepest part of the ocean, Tomas encountered something that would change him forever. A massive, ancient creature, unlike anything he had ever seen, emerged from the shadows. It was a leviathan, its scales gleaming with an ethereal light, its eyes glowing with wisdom and power. The creature spoke to him, its voice both thunderous and gentle. "You have come, Tomas," the leviathan said. "You have embraced the power of the sea, but you must now decide what to do with it. You are the chosen one, but you are not invincible. The choices you make will shape the future of the world." Tomas nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He had gained immense power, but with it came responsibility. The world was not ready for someone like him, and the burden of his newfound abilities weighed heavily on his shoulders. He realized that he could use his powers to protect the oceans, to guide others, but he also knew that there were dangers in misusing such strength. With a final glance at the Leviathan, Tomas made his decision. He would return to the surface, not as a mere fisherman, but as a guardian of the sea. The treasure had transformed him, but it had also shown him the importance of balance. He would protect the oceans and its mysteries, and in doing so, protect the world from the dangers that lay hidden beneath the waves. As Tomas surfaced from the depths, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. The power within him had not disappeared, but it was now tempered with wisdom. He knew that his journey was just beginning, and that the sea would always be his guide.